to a show.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Off the Mats Podcast. And it's me, it's your host, it's Dante. You know that. I know you know that because y'all listen all the time, right? Right? Y'all listen. So, anyhow, I want to welcome to the show today, Mr. Michael Pereira. And Michael is the founder of the Autism Journey. I knew it. I knew I was going to do it. I said this last week, and I worked all week not to do it. The Autism Voyage, not journey, voyage, but it is a journey. And that's a platform that helps families raising children with autism kind of navigate through the terrain of daily life and finances and emotional survival, things of that nature. And also this is important to the whole thing. He's a jiu-jitsu dad, so that makes him one of us. So that's, you know, just in case you was wondering, like, okay, you know, what's going on here? Jiu-jitsu is the source. So I want to welcome today to the show, Mr. Pereira. Mike, how you doing, my friend? And welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem, my friend. Thank you for doing this. So I guess, you know, just kind of starting from the beginning, just getting kind of a general idea of the Autism Voyage and you know, what really prompted you to, you know, start the page and well, not the website, just the foundation and everything.
Yeah. So everything started, obviously, my son was diagnosed a couple of years ago. But the Autism Voyage, it's a blog. It's a newsletter. We also offer different type of services. But let me go back and just share with you, though, how everything originated. So came from corporate America. Was always traveling, never home, I would say. And upon that lifestyle, was able to meet my wife. We decided to get married, buy a house. We got obviously pregnant with our firstborn, which is Christian. And around when he was 1 year old, we started seeing symptoms that we knew needed to be addressed. But I would say, like any parent, you know, you go into this phase of denial. And this phase of, you know, denial / ego / listening to family members that might not know what they're talking about, but obviously you're looking for their intent and advice. And, you know, we, throughout that time period, I would say we just started to look for ways that we can learn about the topic a little bit, because, again, of the denial phase, and COVID came by. We were able to stay home. So a lot of the symptoms we did see at that point just reduced. We don't know why, because I was able to stay home and all the attention was to him. Obviously, I'm a little bit more stricter than my wife. But when COVID released, that I started traveling again, I would say that transition period was very tough for Christian. A lot of the symptoms he had, which reduced, like I mentioned, just increased. So you would see a lot of hitting his head against the wall, tippy-toeing, aligning stuff. Obviously verbal. He was nonverbal at one point. You know, then he started talking, then regressed. So we knew that at that point we needed to get this topic addressed. And we did, and he got diagnosed. And I would say from our side, we went from denial to now acceptance, because the acceptance phase, and now we know he has autism, and we know that now there's care outside of what we thought about that can help him. And at least from a denial standpoint, I start the acceptance phase, but in a dark, I would say, mindset, in the sense that, oh my God, what if I pass away? You know, he is, regardless of what he has, you know, it's very difficult sometimes to just take care of him, you know, the too much energy. And I would just say, okay, but well, my mom, she's the best grandmother there is. She's the best cook there is. But physically, she cannot take care of Christian because he's always on top of the sofa, on top of the kitchen. So those are the type of questions I start asking myself, and I say, okay, who's going to take care of if I pass away? Who's going to take care of him if my wife and myself pass away at the same time? And I started looking for blogs. Couldn't find any that were accurate. They were very old blog posts. Started looking for a financial planner, financial advisor. Everybody just wanted to sell me something or recruit me, and it just became very difficult. So we just decided for us to create that blog for families like us in that stage, and also create our own I would say insurance planning practice to be able to cater to families like ours in that insurance planning phase, which is often not talked about in deep detail, I would say. So yeah, hopefully it wasn't too much.
No. It's never too much. Like I always say, anyone that comes on, hey, the more the better. Quite honestly, I think the guests or the listeners would much rather hear you all as the guest versus hearing me ramble. Because sometimes I do that.
Yeah.
Like, give me long enough time, and we'll be talking about comic books. So, you know,
Yeah.
but that was perfect. Yeah, the fact that you all kind of took the reins and said, look, let's go ahead and get ahead of these things and set up something.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of times, a lot of us, we'll say, I wish there was something out there. I wish there's something out there. And then we're looking and it's not there. And a lot of folks just give up and instead of just saying, well, it's not out there. Well, why don't I, obviously there's a need,
Yeah.
so, and I'm glad you all kind of jumped ahead of that and just say, you know what, we got this. We're going to be the ones to take charge and lead the way. So good.
No, thank you. No, it even though I'm here with you and I sound stable, but it took me a long time to be able to come into terms with this new reality, right? It takes time, So anybody that's hearing that, feels that the way I'm talking is it's it sounds too easy in real. It's because it's been some while. It's been a while since now we've been able to again come into terms and understand that we are here to be a support system and to be able to provide as much support as he needs in order for him to be independent.
I imagine though, just with your calmness here, like, are you a patient person? Because you sound patient, like, or you've adapted.
I have developed this. I would say it's a skill now. To before now I understand to be flexible, to be adaptable, to be to understand that it's not only my way, or my understanding of things, but to understand that just go with the flow. And again, it's been a skill set that I've been able to acquire in the last couple of years.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think children in general, humans, people, it takes a lot of patience, but children, there are layers, to patience with, individuals, just dealing with adults in general, then you're dealing with children, then, then when you're dealing with children who are on the spectrum, it's a whole different game. So that's definitely a skill.
Yeah.
And kudos to you for, adapting to that. And like you said, there's the denial. Oddly enough, I was just listening to a podcast. I'm not sure how old it was, but UFC heavyweight champion Tom Aspinall. I don't know why I want to call him Tom Aspinall. He was speaking of his one of his children having autism. He said the exact same thing. He was like, initially going through it, there's this denial, and then, you're trying to figure out, like, you see things, but you're just thinking, because back, 70s, 80s, 90s, even early 2000s, people look at it like, oh, the kid's just quirky.
Mm-hmm.
They're just, I had a boss who, I think he was 10 years older than me. So I'm 47. So, he's in his 50s. Well, back then he was probably approaching 50, maybe. But I remember talking with him, and just watching like his mannerisms and just certain things. And when I used to be a preschool teacher, I had a couple children who were autistic in my class, and I'm noticing things that he would do that those students
Wow.
at age 4 and 5 were doing.
Yeah.
And then I kind of start piecing it together. It's like he may be on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And because of when he was born, again, they just looked at him like, oh, he's a quirky guy. He's just different, but let him do what he do. And he did. And I mean, he's doing well for himself. So
that's good. That's awesome. That's all. Yeah. Everybody I would say nobody's alike when they're on the spectrum. But you learn how to identify, and then you learn how to adapt, like I mentioned. And you also start seeing other neighbors or friends that may have, you after you experience that, which is a beautiful thing for me. It's a true we're living a true blessing throughout all this. That's why it's called the voyage, it's journey. But for us, it's a true blessing be able to presence this in our son.
Good. Yeah, it sounds really, I know it's a challenge, but it sounds like you all are handling it very well. And Christian's, very lucky to have you all as parents, because, again, you have some folks that they, might sink into that denial and then really, really double down.
Yeah.
So
I've seen it. Yeah. The denial is tough, because I think it kind of picks on your ego. You thought you were going to have one lifestyle, and now you have a different one. And even though Christian is highly functional, he's very high functioning, but regardless, you now there's a new reality that you need to step in and embrace it.
Yeah, absolutely. With daily living and support, what kind of like everyday support are families typically kind of craving it or in need of?
Every family is different, and what I do see is that there has to be some sort of way both parents can be aligned. I think everything starts there, because obviously it's a team effort. And sometimes you see one parent doing one thing, another one disconnected from the true reality. And I think everything starts with just being aligned. Either if you're in the same household, or you're divorced, or you're separated, but there needs to be alignment in regards to just the daily routines, just the daily goals. What exactly support I can provide as the dad, what kind of support the mom can provide, and see how as a team you can work alongside that support system. But it really looks different in each family. But I would say everything starts with obviously the head of household and which are both, and see how that can align with their day-to-day and the child's day-to-day.
I often wonder, especially this day and age, just, you'll have some folks that have this kind of, they're stuck in the past type mindset. It's like, well, we didn't have, all of this back, when we were younger, whatever it may be. Like I mentioned, my old manager, it's always been there. It's just a matter of, recognition, and understanding. But, I often wonder these days, especially, when where the line is, because sometimes, you might have a matter of the kid might just be shy,
True.
kid, might, be into like some kids might be like, hey, we're with the blocks over here, and other kids like, look, I want to draw, I want to, do these other things. Yeah. And then, and then there's a point where sometimes folks might jump, right to the furthest end of the line. It's like, oh my goodness, he or she is autistic. Whereas like, they might just really like art, like they might, not like blocks. Cause I know for me, blocks are loud when they fall. I don't like loud noises. which, I think is, that, but that is a thing though, with individuals with autism. I get startled. I hear those blocks hit, and even as an adult, I hear the blocks. I'm like, ooh, why don't y'all build smaller?
100%. You know that I was talking to my wife the other day around that, because a lot of things that Christian does, I see myself. I saw myself doing it years ago, right? I would start a song, not let it finish. I would constantly change channels. I would not like loud noises in the morning. I have my own things that when I see Christian, I say, man, you know what? Maybe I was there too. But at the same time, we've been able to identify those type of things that do help him, and obviously, or maybe it's sensory issues. But regardless that, I think that something that's helped us a lot is being able to also incorporate or involve his sister Amanda. She is only 3, but so Christian's 7, she's 3, and incorporate maybe play arounds, role play. So whenever he feels or we see that he's isolating himself, or maybe he's doing something that only he understands, so we try to involve her so he can feel incorporated and she can also feel incorporated. That's something that as a sibling, that even though she's too small to be able to think this way, but there's within the community, I think that there's a lot of issues around siblings, because obviously they may feel that there's a lot of support for one child, which is their brother or sister, and maybe not that much support on them. So knowing that, we're trying to also involve Amanda in every way we can for her to feel involved in any way since little, and for him to also understand that there's a support aside from us, beyond us, that it's his sister.
That's good. Good. I think also doing it that way too is it's kind of like, you grow into it. So, there's not a resentment. You
Correct.
just see this as every day. This is life. Both of us are involved in our own ways. So that's awesome, man. Like that's really good.
Thank you. No, that we're doing that, and as of the moment, it's been challenging at sometimes, but in reality, it's been good.
Good. Good. As far as Christian goes, what's like a small change, that you've made that's had kind of a huge ripple effect for him, around
Yeah.
home.
I think it's a couple factors, because obviously you mentioned I'm a jiu-jitsu dad. Jiu-jitsu has been some of it, but it's I would say it's a lot of factors. One, that the reasoning why we put him in jiu-jitsu at one point is because we wanted to reduce the tablet time, the TV time, the screen time was too much for him already, and we noticed it. So we wanted to see, hey, what can we do for him to have activity, to exhaust energy, but at the same time, it's something beneficial for him. And that's why we started seeking sports. So first we started with soccer. Soccer wasn't that good for us because he has something called elopement, which is just running away without any consequence. And obviously, having this in the open field, it's very dangerous. So we took him out of that. And even if it was in the indoor soccer, he would just run and run and run. So it wasn't good. Then we put him in swimming lessons. For the swimming lesson side, well, he saw it as a play date because he loves so much water that he didn't just focus. He just wanted to play in water, and that's it. But then we took him away from that, and we found jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu at one point, with the I think just the environment itself, just by that, it's when you walk into the door, that there's discipline, that there's some sort of brotherhood. Everybody wants you to strive, to thrive. And that's what we wanted from him. So it's in four walls, obviously, so there's no running away. There's other children. So for us, it was very important for him to be socialized with other children. But at the same time, he would imitate them. So if there's a line, he would be in a line. if there's time for him to sit down and watch another kid doing a task, so that's what he would do. So that's where we start seeing that, okay, he's building a pattern here of being able to, by imitating other, he can see that there is a benefit of that. So he would calm himself, be more disciplined. He would obviously gain strength because he was doing exercise. He was exhausting that energy that he had. So by the time he was coming home, calm, just hungry, take a shower, go to sleep. And that's what we wanted. So jiu-jitsu helped us a lot. Right now he's not in jiu-jitsu because he's in summer camp, but we're waiting for that to reincorporate him into jiu-jitsu because there is a lot of benefit in it.
Absolutely. There's something like really like magical about jiu-jitsu in itself, but when you have someone on the spectrum, on the mats, no matter where they are on the spectrum, that there's a huge benefit, whether it's improved focus or body awareness, confidence, like you said, kind of mimicking the other kids. If they're in line, they get in line. I noticed that with one of the individuals that I provide care for at work. I work with individuals with disabilities, and it took me a while to realize that he mimicked a lot of things, because we were playing board games one day at the library, and we had someone new to our group who needed a little bit more help. So, as I'm trying to help another individual, I noticed that he was mimicking the things I would do with him in terms of helping them, pull the card and then move the pieces and then where to go. And I was like, oh, I get it now. Shadowing.
Yeah, true. It happened to us. So I think that's something that, again, for us, it's been very beneficial to just see him, how he can incorporate with other group settings. And it doesn't feel awkward. We notice it. It just feels so it normal, not natural. Like going into here, we're going to the gym, and that for us was amazing because obviously when you're raising a child with autism or any neurodivergence or complicated medical need, you feel judgment. Obviously, that's normal for us parents. You feel that not everybody can handle your child. That's why we were so used to school calling, "Hey, he did this," or we're used to those complaints. But when you see that it just goes naturally, everybody just is waiting for him, and it again, we as a parent, you say, okay, this is what he should be doing.
Yeah, that's super super awesome to hear.
Yeah.
There's also, you mentioned too, the socialization. I think is huge in the jiu-jitsu community, especially for kids.
Yeah, and for parents. And
Yeah.
for parents as well, because you're waiting in the lobby and you're talking with everybody, and and you're seeing him on the TV, and you're saying, oh, so even for us as parents, we're engaging. We're having something in common. So even for us,
there's always that that nervousness at first. Oh, my kid's gonna go in there. It's like, I hope they're listening. I hope hope they're taking it in. I hope they're enjoying it. And then once you see them interacting and doing the instructionals, and then also just engaging with the kids, there's nothing like it, man.
There's nothing like it.
That's got to be awesome.
It is.
And that was a question I was thinking about, and you kind of answered it, mentioned that he was in school, because I was wondering, is he in school, or homeschool? So he's in school, and with his interactions in school with the other students and the teachers, is he kind of molding in with them, or because he's going to still be himself.
Yeah, that's what do his thing. I was going to say that in some cases I don't. First of all, when he's at school, he's also with his RBT, which is a therapist. So he's there next to her. So in reality, that social encounter is not there, I would say, because even though he is in the classroom, he does participate. But I think by having the therapist next to him, he limits him from just interacting in an open way. But she's mentioned that obviously that he's progressing a lot, and I think his attention is too. Something that we do see is when he's exhausted, because obviously the exercise, the focus is there, right? And that's what we look for. So it's a very natural way of being able to calm himself, and I would say regulate his emotions by doing exercise and being present wherever he is and focus a little bit more, because obviously he has his own challenges in focusing.
Sure, sure. I'd also imagine too, as he kind of grows into
Yeah,
himself, he'll kind of pull and be a little bit more independent in his social
right.
interactions.
Correct,
Um,
correct.
as I see that with my child now. I saw a young lady with a poem talking about that growth away from your parents, and I started thinking about my kids. Like, I see that now. It's like, Dad,
100.
Dad, I want to play with my friends. I don't need you around.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. We see that as well.
Good, good. And as far as the jiu-jitsu aspect of it all for him, is there nervousness? Like, I know initially it was probably in the beginning, but like when he goes there now, it's just kind of like jump right into it, or is there still some hesitancy?
Well, when he left, because obviously he's now in camp, but when the last days he was, no, it was very normal. For us,
Okay.
we saw him that he was actually very, very looking forward to go every day. So every morning he will wake up, he wanted to always at that time go to jiu-jitsu. So his state was very looking forward for the class. So
Hmm.
again, it's just the interaction, the class itself being this, being able to imitate others. He gains discipline, he gains self-control, I would say. He can regulate himself, he exhausts energy. There's a lot of benefits just being there. And for us, obviously, we're just happy. If he's happy, we're happy.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Now, here's a question for you
Hmm.
and the parents, because this, I know sometimes gyms will do this. It's like they see the parents hanging around. It's like, you want to step out on the mat, join them, maybe get the feel. Has that thought crossed your mind? Maybe stepping out there and
Maybe
kind of.
yeah, yeah. Later on, maybe I want to incorporate. But the thing is, I've thought about it. But if he sees me in the mat, any type of respect, discipline, it goes out the window. So now that he's in a state that he is there and he is disciplined, he's respectful, he's asking for stuff. I want to go in there, and when he sees me, he's going to say that in Spanish, "Papa," and he's going and everything that we worked for months is going to go out the window. So I think with time, little by
Sure.
little, I'll talk with the coach to see if I can incorporate myself within the adults class. But when he's doing his class, see if I can be there. But for now, it's just seeing how we can maximize the most of his opportunity being there.
Good, good. Yeah, I always think about that with my daughter in
Hmm.
doing jujitsu, because I always have friends say, "Well, you can just teach your daughter jujitsu." And it's like, I think the way she looks at it is, this is time with dad. This is fun time with dad. This isn't learn time with dad. This is, if I'm trying to show her a move, she's giggling and playing and like just flopping around. It's like, but I've heard that from other parents,
Hmm.
who coach jujitsu and train even. They're like, I don't know that I could, teach my kid, because
Yeah.
just that it kind of goes out the window. It's like, oh well, this is this is mom, this is dad. Like, as a matter of fact, I don't know if I want to do a forward roll or a backward roll. I think I want some fruit snacks right now.
Great, great, great. No, it's true, it's true. So, I would suggest any parent that's listening to, if they're even even any parent here who is a jiu-jitsu parent and knows any family member that might have a child, on the spectrum, maybe they're neurodiverse or, have any medical need, to explore jiu-jitsu, to see it in a way that just grappling, that playtime, that interaction in those four walls, it does have a benefit. And from a family perspective, when you start seeing your child being able to interact, nobody's bullying him. No, there's no judgment. There's nothing. And all the coaches I've met are always willing to, let's go to the mat and let's see how he does. Right? They're always willing to help. So I would suggest that those who are listening, there is a benefit, and if they know anybody, I would highly suggest to get them into jiu-jitsu, and if not jiu-jitsu, some sort of sport, right, to take them away from the tablet, but from screen time. But jiu-jitsu is 100% recommended.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned, the screen time is a huge distraction.
Yeah,
It's, I mean, even for me as a 47-year-old dude, it was like earlier, today,
yeah,
just I got lost in scrolling and all the game. It's so easy now for
yeah.
kids too. There's so many
And
things. So
it's so addictive, right?
mhm.
And for those who are wondering, hey, even for us, we started noticing the symptoms of autism because, again, hitting his head against the wall, tippy-toeing, lightning stuff, a lot of stuff. But also I see that there's a lot of confusion of parents saying, hey, he doesn't focus. I think he may have, you know, I would say to just, if it's a child, just let the child be a child, right? Not necessarily everything has to be a diagnosis. My guidance would be, if there's a behavior, or there's something that you see that's harming the baby or the child, then I would seek, um, professional, because they're hurting themselves. But if you see that they have a lot of energy, which for me is good, right? When you have a baby or a child with a lot of energy, and they just want to, oh my God, just maximize that's a huge opportunity. It shouldn't be, like, it shouldn't be a burden. For me, it's an opportunity. Obviously, if you do have any gut feeling that the child might need some sort of support, or you're worried, concerned, by all means, the professionals, you should have a professional see him. Watch out for family, because there's family that's going to say, hey, don't worry, you were the same. But that could be also dangerous, right? Because you could procrastinate early intervention. But I would say just go with your gut feeling. But if there's a child out there that has a lot of energy, you don't know how to exhaust that energy, put him into a sport. Not necessarily take away the tablet screen time. It's good if they're doing any apps for math or anything that obviously it's knowledge, but just get him outdoor. I would remember when I was being raised in Puerto Rico, we would, with the neighbors, we would play baseball. We were every day outdoor. Now it's been years where I live and I don't even almost know my neighbors. Here it's different, and we're in a different age. So I would suggest, again, outdoor activity, or even indoor, but sports, for that child to just exhaust that energy. But again, if there is any gut feeling or there is any worry, concern, go directly to a professional.
Yeah, for
and,
sure.
and seek medical or advice or anything.
If I feel like we lucked out where we live. We
Mm-hmm.
were just noticing this last week how there are a lot of kids in our neighborhood around the same age as our daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, we were very lucky. And then, it kind of called back to when I was a child, when I moved here to Maryland,
Mm-hmm.
and I started counting the kids that were in our neighborhood. And I'm like, you know what? We actually had a lot of kids
Yeah.
in the little court that we're in, and then the neighboring neighborhoods. And we're like, and now we're looking at our daughter. It's like we've hit the lottery, because when I go back to my grandparents' home where I grew up,
Mhm.
I don't see kids outside at all. There are no kids.
You're lucky
And
now. Yeah.
so, like, we used to play, touch football in the street. We play
Mhm.
flashlight tag. We go up the street, play basketball. And now our daughter, she's like the little ringleader with their scooters, their regular scooters.
Yeah. Yeah.
She didn't know how to ride a bike, and they all had bikes. And
Yeah.
then she was like, "Look, I can't ride a bike," so they all got their scooters out. And I look out the window and I see like 6 or 7 of them just rolling around the neighborhood like a little gang. So
Yeah.
it's always cool to see, kids
Hmm.
being out and moving and just being kids. Like you say, you got to let kids be kids.
Yeah. Not everything's a diagnosis, but again, if there's any concern, obviously, I'm all for it. Go to a doctor, seek help, but if it's just energy and they're too hyper and just exhaust that energy, that kid is gonna be a champ, right? So I see it with ourselves. He was diagnosed a couple years ago, Christian. He has autism, ADHD, but we do as much as possible to maximize that time that he has outdoor, indoor activity, walk. We started walking as a family because of him.
Really?
So again, it's having that activity so he can regulate himself. He can concentrate later on, and plus, I don't see really a downfall when you're doing exercise, right? It's always good.
I agree. I mean, no one's ever said like, "Man, I wish I didn't go for that walk." you know, like, well, I don't know. Sometimes I do.
Yeah, but yeah, me too. I haven't seen that either.
Yeah. I want to real quick kind of go back to as we're talking about the blog,
Yeah.
and kind of the financial
Hmm.
side, like the plan and stuff like that. There's money's always kind of a stress point, just
Hmm.
for people, especially when it comes to therapy,
Yeah.
long term care. So you've built kind of planning system that's you know more than just kind of a numbers thing.
Yeah.
Can you kind of
Yeah.
elaborate on us, what that kind of looks like for us?
Of course. Of course. So the blog, like I mentioned, it's a blog. We just crossed over 75 articles. Those articles, the majority are, we would say, are questions any parent would ask for if they're scrolling at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning, just looking for knowledge. So that's the type of content that's there. We talk everything from swimming to group homes to late diagnosis. We have a lot of different blogs. So we are expecting to be in 100 some blogs by the end of the year. We have a newsletter that just crossed over 2,000 families. It goes twice a week out. And it basically talks about or a story of mine during the week or just highlighting some blogs. But now, in regards to the services we do offer, it's more around insurance planning. We don't call it financial planning because we don't do investments. So it's more on the insurance planning, and we help parents, for example, in three key areas. One area is in income protection. So let's say Christian depends on me 100% of the time, but I get cancer, I get in a stroke or in a car crash, and I'm a couple years out. This type of policy would either depends how it's structured, and it depends on if the parent qualifies, but it can either replace an income or receive a lump sum from a policy. So that would help, like living benefits, for example. We use the second would be we use life insurance to fund a special needs trust. So that's a way in order to protect the eligibility of the child if they have any government benefits. So we again we use life insurance to fund the special needs trust, and then the third one would be long term care. Again, Christian depends on me 100%, and I don't know until when. So if he's 45, let's say if he still requires support when he's 45 and now I'm 82 years old and I need help. Assisted living facilities and nursing homes are becoming very expensive. So this type of policy basically obviously done correctly and with time so it can accrue it would accrue a certain amount of money that would be able to be destined to basically pay out for this long-term care phase in the older years. So we focus on those key three areas because it's what we believe in, and we're not transactional. So we really deep dive into each family and see how, from a comprehensive point of view, really see how it makes sense. Because, for example, we're talking about using life insurance to fund a special needs trust. That's perfect. But then we need to talk also about guardianship. That's a huge topic. Because I can fund a special needs trust. The language is there for Christian, but what if I'm not there, or my wife Ellie, and there's a guardian in place that now assume responsibility for Christian, and he or she needed to leave work. We need to leave an income for that guardian, right? So it's having that type of conversation to deep dive in those scenarios that parents might not think exist.
Yeah, it's something that would have never crossed my mind. Even working in the field that I work in, we see the communities, the campuses, that some of our folks live on, and I always wonder, kind of what goes into those conversations, what goes into kind of the process of it, because it's not a cheap thing for sure.
No.
It's not something to be overlooked or kind of shrugged off. So
and there's other topics. That's around the problem statement. Insurance planning might help, but there's no one size fits all. So there's conversations around blended families. So when you have, you get remarried, but you have a never divergent child, and you get remarried, there's a lot of considerations there. Then we talk about siblings. Later on, maybe is that sibling going to become a guardian? Could be. That's the type of conversation we need to start having, because just years pass by so fast. So again, it's that, but also it's working with an attorney. Whoever tells you that this can be done with a one-man person, that's not correct. Anything I do, I'd like to do it with a team. And that team might be your attorney to talk about the trust, talk about guardianship, power attorneys, and see how financial services can reinforce your estate planning.
Good.
It's a teamwork.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It sounds like a lot of planning. You're not just like planning, but like kind of like really thinking it through versus just seeing one thing on the table and saying, let's go with that. You got to think of all the other angles with that one thing on the table, what other options might be available as well. So, that's good to, put that, out there for folks to see and work around.
Yeah. And I think just the conversation itself, because, for example, I see a lot of people say, hey, but my son is highly functional. I don't think I might need anything, because most likely he will be able to make decisions by himself. And say, perfect. But what if not? What if he can't? And that's the main pain point, I would say, for a lot of families dealing with autism. The child may progress to a point that it's independent, but he may not. The progress is very inclined towards the child. So it's not if I want to or not, it's how he progresses. So that's the thing. If you don't have these conversations because you're speculating that your child might not need it, there is a consequence of waiting, right? Policies get more expensive. Everything gets more expensive. You are most likely not. You're less eligible to be qualified for something, because obviously as time passes by, your health also deteriorates. So just speculating by itself, it has its own consequence, right? And then there's the other factor that I see parents that they want to do it themselves, so they go online and buy a policy online. And that's the thing. It seems in those conversations that I have with those parents that do it themselves, this type of mentality, which is good because they're proactive, but it seems like they're in cruise control, but they're going the wrong way. And I see that a lot. So hopefully, parents in your community can if they know of any parent that's going through this type of phase, hopefully they can share this episode and let them know that they're not alone, right?
Well, definitely. Um, I know recently, just especially in the jiu-jitsu community, there's been kind of a uprising, people speaking up in the neurodivergent
Yeah,
community. So, hopefully, individuals, as they hear this episode, if it's been something on their mind, they've been thinking about, or they might have been presented with, you know, questions,
yeah,
you know, here's kind of a first step.
yeah,
And again, with the blog that you all, have, it's very helpful. You
yeah,
know, it's like you said, being proactive, that's great.
yeah,
But also too, along with that, you don't want to just do it on your own.
no.
All resources available, take them.
Yeah, man. It doesn't mean because you have a conversation you need to commit, right? I think that conversation is more around to getting clarity where you are and what's needed to get where you want to go to, you know. But don't think by any way that having a conversation with an advisor or a planner means that you're committing to anything, right? Uh, that shouldn't be the way. But I do believe that everything starts with a conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Michael, this has actually been really awesome, very informative, and just for me, like eye opening. Because even though I rub elbows, and stuff there, but I don't know everything. So just kind of having this conversation with you and really, taking in what you've been saying, and hopefully, the listeners,
Yeah.
have gained something from this as well. But before we wrap up and get out of here, I want to do a real quick rapid fire because it's something we've been doing, and not everybody, like you're not exempt, my friend. You're
Okay.
you're, you're part of it too. You're part of our community here. So I'm gonna hit you with a couple. Let's see here. Let me look at my questions.
Okay.
I got 4 here. I'm gonna give you 3 of them. 3 out of
Okay.
these 4 rapid fires, and they may not be so rapid fiery.
Okay.
It might take a little bit of thought, maybe a longer answer, but that's fine. I got these questions for you, my friend. So the first thing I want to ask you, and this kind of goes back to Christian's diagnosis. What's one thing that you wish you knew early on that you weren't quite aware of then, but like you now have a better grasp of now?
Hmm. To have more accountability, I would say. And when I say accountability, there's a saying that says there's a quote I remember when I was in sales that would say, "Hey, it's not your fault, but it's your problem." There, in our case, would be it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility. So it's more, from day one having that conviction of ownership and accountability that whatever does diagnose it is or whatever, it's still my responsibility and not to go into that victim mentality.
All right, cool. This one is jiu-jitsu related.
Oh, okay.
All right. Was there a moment on the mats that you saw a Christian that kind of hit you in the feels?
No, actually, as at the moment, it's been very because the coach he's very, um, you know, has a lot of empathy with Christian, so he's more on the side of trying to exhaust the energy, push-ups, we're running, doing squats, that he's really not putting him. He didn't at that point put him into that mode. So as of the moment, no, I'm not yet.
Ah, you'll get there.
I'll get there.
And then the last one, what's next for the Autism Voyage?
Well, we are launching in the next month a directory, and the directory is going to be for professionals that where we obviously only focus on the content and newsletter and financial services. It's more on being able to be a resource for parents that are going through different type of stages or looking for resources. So we're going to have parent coaches, IEP coaches. There's even a coach for postpartum depression. We're going to have also a service-based um, category, which is for law firms, even apps, technology, and another section for nonprofits. So it's a directory that we believe that for parents who are sometimes looking for something that they might not know what they're looking for, they might find it there.
Awesome. Awesome. I love hearing that, just as you got something and it's moving and it's growing and
Yeah.
there's no standstill on it. It's like, there's always something to be
Mhm.
added to help. And that's good that you all see that and you're moving towards it. So
Yeah.
good. Glad to hear that.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that's all I got for my rapid fire. I had a fourth one, but that one seemed kind of like, eh, you know, that was a wild question.
Okay.
But Michael, thank you very much for coming on and sharing your time and your experiences. Like when we spoke last week, um after talking to you, I was like, oh my god, I'm excited just hearing a portion of your story
Yeah.
right then and there just made me feel like, you know what, I want to know more. Let's talk. And I'm glad that we got to do this.
No,
So
thank you.
thank you. Thank
No,
you.
no, thank you.
Before we get out of here, you got any shout outs or mentions you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Uh, just mention that if any parent going through this, newly parent that going through this, or any, you know, if you feel anxious, if you feel uncertain, if you feel any of those, you're in the right place. That is part of being a parent of a child that has their own unique needs, but it is a blessing in disguise, I would say, or not even a disguise. It is a blessing by itself, and they shouldn't feel alone, and that's what we're doing. What we're doing here on our side, be able to provide content, be able to provide a newsletter, be able to provide a place that feels safe, feel trusted. But again, no parent should feel alone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. And
Okay.
again, just this has been a learning experience and a great time. So thank you.
No, thank you for your time.
Sure. Sure. Never a problem. And as always, to you all the listeners, thank you. If y'all have any questions, concerns, criticisms, anything, feel free to reach out. You can find me at bjj.wiki on Instagram or Off the Mats Podcast, also on Instagram. And I know I joke about the email a lot. I say, y'all can get me at Off the Mats 2020 at gmail.com. And sometimes I say, don't even send nothing because I might not even see the email. But you know what? That's not true. That's how we connected here. So I do look at the emails. It's just like sometimes I'll see an email come through. And I'm like, I don't think that's real. I'm gonna respond though, and and it gets us places. So y'all can reach out, and just let me know how you feel. If you want to be a guest, hey, if my sound isn't sounding good, let me know. I can't fix things if y'all don't tell me. So feel free to reach out. I also want to give a big shout out to my crew over there at Nerd Rage Radio. Bobby, Chris, Joe, Marilyn, Phil, Ricky, Tiki, Farrell. Who else is over there? Chucky O, all the folks, everyone. I love them. If it were not for Nerd Rage Radio, I wouldn't be doing a podcast. So thank you to those folks over there. And if you like the pod, thank them. If you don't like it, then blame them too. Don't send me mean emails. If you don't like the podcast, send them the mean emails. And also want to shout out my other podcast. So you like horror. If you like scary movies, go check it out. I'm not even sure where we're at, but I know we're talking about remakes versus originals. Probably Dawn of the Dead upcoming soon. So go check that out. It's at So You Like Horror on Instagram All the words separated by underscores. So go check that out. And last but not least, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to our guest today, Mr. Michael Pereira. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your story and your experience. And I'd love to have you back on, especially down the line. If you say, hey, let me go ahead and step foot on these mats, I definitely want to have you back and let's talk about that experience for you as well, my friend.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Thank you.
All right. No problem. No problem. And to you, all the listeners, again, thank you. Y'all know what it is. You guys keep listening, and we're going to definitely keep making these shows. Thank you, everybody, and goodbye.
Deep with it. Now let me sing a song.